I think out of all the prominent actors who have played Batman on the silver screen, Ben Affleck is the one with the most missed potential, and the mishandling of his character was unfortunately a byproduct of studio meddling, poor writing decisions, and mismanagement over at Warner Brothers. Despite the issues I or many other people have with this version, the one thing practically nobody complains about is Ben Affleck's performance as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. This is probably the best physical representation of Batman in live action, not taking into account the writing and only highlighting the visual aesthetic. The Batsuit, the fight scenes, how Bruce Wayne looks, and how they incorporated the fantastical elements to have him stand alongside powerhouses like Superman and the Justice League. Batman vs Superman still has the best live action Batsuit in my opinion. There has yet to be a fight sequence that beats the warehouse scene, perfectly showcasing what an experienced Batman's martial arts prowess and use of gadgetry should look like. If the DCEU Batman had all these physical attributes that aligned with the source material, where did it all go wrong? What was initially planned for this iteration of The Dark Knight, and how might have things gone differently? One thing that stood out when it came to casting a new Batman after the conclusion of the Dark Knight trilogy by Christopher Nolan was that Zack Snyder wanted an older, more experienced Batman to provide a counterbalance to a younger Superman played by Henry Cavill. Since this Batman never got his own movie to explore his mythos or some of his history prior to the events of BVS, what can we gather from the DCEU projects that have come out? For starters, Bruce Wayne has been active in Gotham for a while.
20 years in Gotham, Alfred. We've seen what promises are worth. How many good guys are left? How many stayed that way?
Wayne Manor became abandoned and decomposed after Bruce left the mansion to live at a lake house at age 18, which was commissioned by his father as a gift to his mother, according to Zack Snyder. Some of the villains he's encountered throughout his career include Killer Croc, Deadshot, Joker and Harley Quinn, Deathstroke, the Riddler, Mad Hatter, and Firefly. Batman had a Robin at some point who was killed by the Joker, and even though Snyder intended this Robin to be Dick Grayson, the movies never directly state his identity. Which begs the question, if this Batman doesn't have a no-kill rule and kills criminals like it's nothing, why are the Joker and Harley Quinn still alive? Suicide Squad pointed out that Harley was an accomplice in the murder of Robin. Apparently, Batman beat the Joker so badly that he used metallic grills as replacement teeth and had the word damaged tattooed on his forehead because Batman ruined his smile. But homeboy is still alive. Remind me what Bruce was doing in BVS again? Batman's morals in this universe become even more questionable in the Suicide Squad scene where he apprehends Deadshot. So you mean to tell me, freaking Batman of all people goes out of his way to capture a criminal in an alleyway at night in front of his daughter, then proceeds to have a brief physical encounter with Deadshot before the fight is stopped thanks to Zoe standing in the way right as Deadshot pulls out a gun. Not only is this a questionable decision on Batman's part, it's also incredibly dangerous to have a little girl in harm's way while trying to apprehend a criminal. How did the world's greatest detective not take that into account? This nigga has been active for 20 years.
You said worthless motherfucker!
The version of this scene that was written in the original script is somehow even worse. Deadshot points out how it's bad timing since he's with his kid, and Batman responds with, "Take a good look at her. When you see her again, she'll have gray hair." Deadshot in the original script actually manages to shoot multiple times with his wrist magnums while Zoe is in the area, making this encounter even more moronic. One wrong move from Batman or Deadshot and she could be critically injured or possibly killed. But WB should release the air cut, right guys? Because we totally need more of this nonsense. When it came to how WB would utilize Batman in the DCEU, things only turned for the worst during the production of Justice League. A lot of you probably know the story behind the reshoots by this point, so I'll keep the recap brief. While director Zack Snyder was filming Justice League, he had to step away from the project after the tragic death of his daughter. WB brought in Joss Whedon to replace Snyder and rework the script, as the studio wanted to course correct after the negative reception to BVS. They tried to compete with Marvel and replicate the success of the Avengers and said, hey, why not hire the guy who made those movies? The extensive reshoots raised concerns because additional photography typically lasts only a couple of weeks and costs around $6 to $10 million. But with the Justice League, the reshoots went on for about 2 months and WB spent an additional $25 million. The most noticeable differences in this new version of the movie were the addition of more jokes and some questionable dialogue in certain scenes, as well as instances of characters behaving completely out of character.
Well, I knew you didn't bring me back because you like me.
I don't. Not Do you talk to fish? The water does the talking.
Tell me, do you bleed?
I know Joss Whedon or whoever must have felt so tough after inserting that cringe-ass line of dialogue.
Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
The theatrical cut of Justice League was the worst performing DCEU movie at the time, making less than David Ayer's Suicide Squad and Men of Steel, with a budget of around $300 million. When the first ever theatrical Justice League movie fails to resonate with critics and audiences, you know you done messed up. Ben Affleck has been very vocal about his experience in filming Justice League, calling it the worst experience he's ever seen in a business. It came around the time when he was struggling with alcoholism and found his time to be creatively not satisfying. In 2015, WB announced that Ben Affleck would direct a solo Batman movie and co-write the script with Jeff Johns. The original script had Deathstroke as the primary antagonist, who had a personal vendetta against Batman. Zack Snyder's initial plans for the DCEU set the stage for Deathstroke going after Batman, after learning about his secret identity thanks to Lex Luthor.
You volunteered to destroy the Bat free of charge. Why the pro bono work?
It's personal.
If you want the Batman, his name is Bruce Wayne.
On second thought, we do have something to celebrate.
Good boy.
It was a dark story centered on Deathstroke acting sort of like a horror movie villain, dismantling Bruce's life from the inside out, from destroying his finances to killing nearly everyone close to him in an attempt to make him suffer as he felt Bruce was responsible for his son's death. There would have been an epic showdown between Batman and Deathstroke, to which Batgirl would be featured in a supporting role to help in Bruce's efforts in the third act. Affleck would eventually step down as director, with Matt Reeves taking the helm in 2017. Then in 2019, Affleck announced that he would step down from the role entirely. Matt Reeves had full creative control over the project, directing what would become The Batman, which was released in 2022 and starred Robert Pattinson. Since that movie was set outside the DCEU continuity, WB pretty much had no actor attached to their interconnected universes version of Batman for about a year and a half. In 2020, however, it seemed like Affleck was gonna make a comeback, with it being announced that he would return in the Flash movie. He even filmed a cameo scene for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, as the studio wasn't sure if that movie would come out before or after the Flash. Even though Affleck was set to return, WB didn't intend on him being the primary Batman of the DCEU for the foreseeable future. Rather, that role was set for Michael Keaton, who was also announced to play a version of Batman in The Flash. The movie was going to serve as a soft reboot for the DCEU, introducing Michael Keaton as Batman into the wider universe and Sasha Calle as Supergirl. The cancelled Batgirl movie was supposed to release after The Flash and have Keaton show up as Batman, while you had J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon from Justice League. Keaton was also set to get his own movie at some point. Apparently, Walter Hamada wanted to develop a Crisis on Infinite Earths type of event movie, and the original post-credit scene of The Flash had Ben Affleck's Batman lost in the multiverse trying to relay a message. On one hand, there were some redeeming qualities in Affleck's brief appearance in the movie. His final scene where he talks to Barry Allen about the ramifications of time travel, I thought was really well done. Affleck himself has said that this was when he finally figured out how to play the character in his limited appearances. Incoming side tangent, other than the horrendous suit that he wears, there's one scene in particular that rubs me the wrong way. It's minor but problematic regardless.
I'd do a lot better just giving all that money away. If I really want to end crime, I should end poverty.
I hate this scene with a passion. Not only because it contradicts how the Lasso of Truth's abilities were established in the Wonder Woman movie, I don't know why Bruce would just randomly blurt out nonsense, or why Barry would go on about having never experienced sex, like that's just cringe. It also just adds fuel to the nonsensical stigma of Bruce Wayne not using his resources to help the people of Gotham. No, Bruce Wayne would not end all crime or poverty either in Gotham or the world with his money alone. That's just wishful thinking, and the problems in the world are far more complicated than just, oh, but if you gave them money, then all the problems would be fixed. You mean to tell me Gotham City is one of the most corrupt places in the world? No problem, just have Bruce Wayne give all of his money away. That'll solve everything. That'll totally prevent someone like Vandal Savage from becoming the commissioner of the GCPD, or stop the Court of Owls, a secret society made up of Gotham's wealthy elite that's been operating from the shadows for centuries, so effectively, I might add, that Bruce didn't even know of their confirmed existence until years into his career. Victor Zsasz is murdering innocent people? Well, that's just because Bruce Wayne isn't doing enough. Oh, but Victor Zsasz was actually born into a wealthy family and wasted his fortune on gambling. Therefore, he ruined his life due to poor decision making and not because of the systemic issues in Gotham. Please tell me how Bruce Wayne, quote unquote, ending poverty is gonna stop a superpowered eco-terrorist like Poison Ivy from wreaking havoc across the city? What do you think his money is gonna do against the crime families, run by the people who also run billion-dollar corporations and have finessed the justice system on several occasions? Batman literally went after Carmine Falcone's son in The Flash, which led to that scene with the lasso of truth.
Falcone's idiot kid decided to try to play in the big leagues, put a crew together and broke into the lab at Gotham General.
Not to mention the Wayne Foundation in the source material provides low-income housing, funds free clinics, and it gives jobs to former criminals on a consistent basis. Anyone who says otherwise is objectively wrong and doesn't know what they're talking about, which includes the person who wrote that scene in The Flash. Affleck has expressed his disinterest in returning to the superhero genre after the release of The Flash, which is exactly why I find it hilarious whenever Snyder goons try to demand the restoration of the Snyderverse, or think there's a chance of it coming back due to some Warner Brothers buyout or whatever. Ben Affleck is currently 53 years old. You seriously think after all he's been through and what he's moved on from, he'd want to put on the cape and cowl for another 10 years? Not to mention you have other factors that need to be taken into account with the rest of the old Justice League cast. Ezra Miller's a criminal, Ray Fisher is never working with WB ever again, Jason Momoa is playing Lobo in the DCEU, a role he's wanted to play for the longest time, Gal Gadot has limited acting capabilities, and having her as a part of the cast for another DC movie would be a publicity nightmare. The only other actor who genuinely got screwed over in terms of making a comeback was Henry Cavill, to which WB had no real desire in bringing him back, because if they did, they would have made him sign a multi-picture deal after his cameo in Black Adam. The studio executives regretted releasing the Snyder Cut in the first place, so believing there was a chance of WB actually pursuing the restoration of Snyder's vision is even more hysterical.
You gotta move on. You gotta move on.
Batfleck really became the potential man out of all the live-action Batmen, a superb casting choice that was mishandled with back-to-back horrendous scriptwriting. A well-written solo movie probably would have done wonders for the character, possibly expanding upon what was already known about his mythos in BVS. But studio meddling, constant changing of plans, and Ben Affleck's burnout ruined any chance of that happening. The entire DCEU is essentially a good case study of what not to do when trying to manage an interconnected cinematic universe. Let's hope James Gunn can avoid the mistakes that were made with the previous universe with his Batman in the DCU, because it's insane how we haven't gotten a consistently well-written Batman in live action set in an established world alongside a wider pantheon of DC heroes by now.